Yeah, it's recording, okay.
I remember Mrs. Patrice, I had to go in and kneel down. and
Yeah,
lift my-
you have to kneel down and make sure your skirt's
I
touching the
saw
ground.
I went to the campus as a meeting and I saw that she had a
Okay.
post pitch out and all
6
the
o'clock?
cheerleaders were
Yeah.
taking pictures.
Oh, I
Six oh one.
remember.
Oh, yeah, you can't
You
forget.
got the recording ready?
God.
Start. Excuse me. You're going with the recorder? Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Sweetwater Union High School District Proposition O Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. It's Wednesday, October 9, 2013, and we're at Montgomery Middle School Library. Take roll.
Robert Corriero.
Nick Marinovich.
Dave Butler.
Bob Straw.
Terry McCurney.
Okay, we have Kevin O'Neill and Edgar absent. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is the approval of the minutes. I reviewed the minutes for August 14th, not reviewed yet, so I have to defer on September 11th. I reviewed the minutes to August 14th, and I had some additions or expansions or whatever, clarifications to the minutes that I emailed out to everybody, and they're incorporated in here. I want to make sure I got all the information down correctly, because this is a matter of official public record and all that. So with that, I'll move. If there's any discussion, I will move approval of the minutes.
This is for the August 14th meeting, is that correct?
That's correct. Okay.
Has there been a motion to approve?
I guess I can do it, right, as chair? No?
I so move.
Okay.
I'll
that's
second
right.
it.
Still learning. All in favor? All ayes with Edgar and Kevin O'Neill absent. The next item we have is public comment on items not on the agenda. Are there any speakers?
I don't know if the fire alarms are on the agenda.
Fire alarms will be under project
Project status
reports.
Okay, then I'll wait for that.
Ms. Cheers.
Good evening. I just wanted to give you all an update on my comments at the last board meeting regarding ESI showing up at my home. I, as a taxpayer, thought it would be wise to ask for a copy of the bill and a copy of the report. I received a response back from the district telling me that there was no bill, there was no report. I didn't quite understand that, so I sent through another asking for clarification, because I thought maybe I did something wrong. And I received a very curt email back saying that the email speaks for itself. I then sent another email saying I really do not understand this, and what I received was a letter from Mr. Shinoff, who is Sweetwater's attorney, telling me that no such documents exist. So I am moving forward on this, but just wanted to let you know that now, on top of the private investigator, the trip down to my house, the phone call, we now have added Mr. Shinoff's time, and this is ridiculous in my personal opinion. Thank you very much.
Any other comments from the members? Or thank you, Ms. Cheers. Report from the CBOC chair. There actually, there really has not been that much. I went to the board. We're going to cover the board meeting I gave a chair report about our last meeting. non-eventful. Did mention, I believe, the fire alarms in there, and our discussions about, increased, concern still about feeling that we need more transparency and understanding what district priorities are in terms of projects and how those projects are prioritized. And that's about it. I really don't have that much to report as chair. Just gave my standard chair. All the infamous travel request was not on the agenda for September. However, it will be, I'm assured, both the reimbursing me for the money I spent back in May will be there, along with my request to attend the California League of Bond Oversight Committee meeting on November 14th will be on there. So there'll be 2 items. Is that correct, Tom?
That's correct, submitted, it's actually one item, one is to approve and the other is to ratify. It's $548 and approximately $500 for the trip.
Okay. Yeah, one other item I failed to mention, though most of you probably read the media accounts, that AB 182, the bill limiting capital appreciation bond issuances was signed by the governor and becomes effective, I don't think there was urgency legislation, January 1 of this year or next year. And it probably will not, my guess is it probably won't have much of an impact on this district, though districts that have, they're in the future going to be at or near their debt limit and have slower assessed value growth, it may impact their ability to issue capital appreciation bonds in the future. But in some cases, the other districts, it might actually encourage bonds being issued. And in fact, it was less than even though the press accounts are very positive, it's a type of legislation where it could actually, depending on the circumstances, could actually encourage capital appreciation bonds that otherwise wouldn't occur because it sets up the infamous ratio, the total amount of debt relative to the total amount of borrowed, and it sets this 4.0 cap in the legislation. Yet the way the legislation evolved, the cap is becoming now the standard in which you try to structure your debt issue if you're in a district that's at or near your debt limit. So, and in fact, in the other district that I work on, it actually, in fact, that's their plan, is to issue all cabs beyond the current one up to the 4.0 ratio. So, it's not perfect legislation, but it does at least raise the issue of having bond oversight committees and the public watching the amount of debt that's being issued. So, that's it. Next item is bond project updates, and that's where I turn it over to Tom Calhoun.
And Paul Woods gives his regrets that he could not attend today. He's been working half days. He's been into the office again last week and wanted to see if he could come by. He said if it was going to be rainy, he wouldn't come. So I guess that's rainy for Southern California, so he didn't come. And so he looks forward to attending next month. So here's the project update from Planning and Construction. The HVAC upgrade at Bonita Vista High School. The roof is on. It was put on during the break. We're about 25%. The HVAC units have been set on the building, on the 600 building. There's some pictures of the roofing. That's the old central plant that will be decommissioned once this is over and cleared out, and that will be made into a storage area. Track and field design is 50% complete. In the upcoming M1 for October, I'm taking out the bidding and award and the construction administration, so I want to salvage all available money for fire alarms. Yes, Mr. Straw.
Dr. Grubb had raised the issue of the pre-wiring for lights in that facility.
This one will have pre-wiring, we'll have conduit in for lights.
Okay.
So that opportunity will present itself. We will, however, if we go forward with that project, funded, we'll have to go forward with an environmental assessment, and want to do a light study and, do probably a mitigated negative declaration through CEQA.
Thank you very much to the chair for,
And that'll be reflected as an amendment to the contract in some of the savings we've made will be used for the lighting.
just as a personal note, I just don't understand why that field has gone so long unlighted.
Because of the former deal with, I guess, the home builder around the adjacent area and Southwest College.
Through the chair.
Yes, Dr.
Well,
Grubb.
I think that it was probably, the project was built many years ago. And maybe there was a casual agreement between the building developer and the school district. There was never any contract.
I could not find any written documentation except for the agreement with Southwest College.
Yeah, and that in fact has been, from the people that I've talked to, it has been at best a very tenuous agreement. They really don't want the high school district over there, and they just sort of acquiesce to the pressure that they've had in the past for a contract to play football on the field there.
And for the past year and a half, it's not been available.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you brought up to me, people asked me, how come it's taking so long? And I said, well, Mr. Calhoun told me that there's a sort of an underground river aquifer there.
Underground stream.
So anyway, thank you for doing that, and I appreciate that through the chair.
And well, the audience has a question, but I got a question maybe that she was going to ask on the phone. For this track and field design, and then there's several, I think there's another one on here.
Hilltop High.
Those projects, when the design is completed, how long is the design? I assume at some point in time, maybe not, that you go to a DSA for approval of the design?
Once the design's complete, we'll submit to DSA for approval. And once DSA issues the letter of approval and stamp drawings, they're good for 2 years, and then you can get 2 one-year extensions if you desire.
So you can have up to 5 years?
Up to 4 years.
4 years. So by doing the design, hearing that, you expect to have the funding, presumably to complete the design within 4 years, because that's all the design is good for? Or
Well, I would expect that once we get the design approved through DSA, which could be another, it's 50% complete design, like take another 3 months total submission. DSA takes sometimes 6 months to approve designs that are high priorities. We're not going to tell them it's a high priority, it's giving them funding for it. Another 6 months, so probably that's 2014 June. By 2019, 2018 June, we would have to have a contract awarded to a contractor. And so that would be my expectation, that we would have that.
So,
With the assessed valuation increasing and
Yeah.
the ability to sell more bonds.
so maybe this will go on to other, well, I guess the issue that I have is that with some of these ones that involve design, and in turn it assumes that you're going to start construction within a finite period of time, has the district done a cash flow of, this is what we want to do given what we've designed, this is what we're going to do in the future, and this is what the assessed value, this is what we have to do in terms of assessed value, and this is the debt service. We've got a list of project priorities relative to the funding that's going to become available. Once those project priorities, usually they're greater than the sum of the revenue, so then there's decisions made on how you want to.
Sure.
So how does that, is there such a process that exists now where the district looks at what they're going to be doing 5 years from now, given what design they're doing today, make sure they got the money to do all that they're designing today?
So I think the best way to answer that, Mr. Marinovich, is tell you about the Long Range Facilities Master Plan. I can wait till that point, but Long Range Facilities Master Plan is really going to set all the needs and requirements for each school site, do a campus master plan needs assessment, and then lay out all the capital projects that are going to be needed at each site, regardless of what the cost is. And then the cost will be part of the
report, once the long-range facilities master plan is done, then that would be presented to the board in about a year from now, once it's done. And then the board would set the priorities based on what community input is provided, because each community is going to be engaged at each school during the next year for the long-range facility master plan. So the question would then be, what is a priority? Is this a priority for the next bond sale or not? And then whether the district decides to go forward with perhaps another bond measure in addition to Prop O is another question. I mean, there's a lot of issues going on as far as assessed valuation when the Prop 8 resets are going to happen. How much development is going to occur in the eastern part of the district, which will add assessed valuation to the district's approximately $34 billion assessed valuation at this point.
If I might,
Yeah,
I think
David?
what you're getting at, and this would be my question, so you're going ahead with design and paying for it, not knowing whether it will be a priority at that site in 3 years. So in fact, if it isn't a priority, the design's wasted money.
Well,
If it doesn't become a
Mr. Lawyer,
priority
I can
at
tell you
time,
that
is that kind of,
at these two sites, those are their site priorities at this point, that I've
Okay.
heard from that constituencies.
okay.
So if these aren't in the top 3 projects at each school site, I would be surprised once the long-range plan is completed.
Mr. Creative.
The district made a decision to go forward with the design.
Right.
Was that part of a master plan or not?
It was in the last master plan. It wasn't a prioritized project for the first tranche of bond projects, but it was part of the master plan.
Okay, so
just-
it wasn't something that they just decided to do.
No.
It was something that's in somewhere.
These are needed projects that have been on a list and they were in the project list that was in Prop O.
I'll keep my mouth shut.
No.
No? Talk? All right. What I'm hearing is that, maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom.
Sure.
And I don't want to be difficult, take too much time. I believe that there's been bureaucratic inertia, for no better term, of getting this project to move forward. But that some of these design projects that we're funding today, which may have been part of an original master plan, are being done thinking, but not that you're going to have the money when there's going to be time to build it, but that I don't think, unless I haven't seen it, I don't see a district, what we got today, where we're going, and I know it's going to be tweaked with the master plan, how much money we're going to have 5 years from now, what we're designing now, what we're planning with fire alarms or whatever else we plan to do in the future, and see whether this project would meet the priority list in the future. And that's the concern that I have when looking at this and the other design. Are we doing design that's going to be stale by the time we're going to have the money to build it? And we're going to be incurring costs today that we would be better off just holding off on some of the design until we knew the funding was more solidified.
So the risk of code issues on these 2 projects is very low. Code changes on a track and field project is very low. If it was a building, I would agree with you, Mr. Mrovich, that we could lose the project effort. But it wouldn't, even if we expired the DSA plans, the only issues at risk for redesign would be some of the ADA issues. Because ADA access compliance is required to get people, in and out of the stadium from the parking area for path of travel. So those are really a minor part of this. Most of the project cost is in the field development, the synthetic turf, the synthetic track, the light, looking at the Thank you.
Okay.
So the risk, I would say, is at this point for breakage on these projects is very low.
Any other question, Dr. Grubb?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate Mr. Marinovich's comments about, and the rest of the committee's comments about having, putting all of the ducks in a row and making sure that the process goes forward in a legitimized and organized fashion. And I think that's important. And I think it's not a matter of been lacking in the past, but I think it's the way to look at projects. You need to have some sensibility about whether the money's going to be there if you're going to spend X, Y, Z dollars on something like design. And your comments, I think, are well received because unless we change the way we play sports, the track and field is not going to change a lot from now to perhaps 10 years from now. Having said that, there is a significant problem relative to equality within the district. If nothing else was considered, it should be one of the top priorities in the district to do, above and beyond anything else that's done here, including and not limited to building facilities. You cannot ask one high school to be completely devoid of lights and can't practice their facility work, and every other high school does. If it was a proposition, or, if it was a chapter or a section 9, if you will, Title 9, it would be done yesterday. And it's just as well, it should be that, because the fact of the matter is, you want to talk about equality across the level of the playing field. It needs to be done, and it should be at the top of the priority list. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Tom, just one quick question. When you do the master plan, is it going to lay out what your projections are for assessed value each year and what your plans are? Because I would think you would want to, and saying, okay, at the 3-year point, we think the assessed value is going to be this, and this is what we're planning on doing. We're going to issue some cash, we're going to have some bans, or what are we going to do? Is that part of that?
It isn't. What it is it takes a look at the facility condition assessment of each building and rates it. It looks at the educational adequacy of that building given our current ed spec. It looks at the layout of the campus and how we're going to master plan and phase the development of the new projects that are identified in the process. And it looks at the demographics, the growth of the district, where it's growing, where we may need additions, where we may need new schools, where we can take buildings down and not replace them because the demographics are declining. Those will be taken into account. At the same time, in parallel to that, I'll be working with Dr. Alt and the new financial advisor, which I think you guys are going to have input into the RFQ for the financial advisor of the bond council, and they'll put together the projections at the same timeline so that they're married together.
They will be married together,
And then
then, so
as we
we
go
can
to the-
see them together.
As we go to the board in a year from now, from probably November, December, we'll be able to lay those out in front of the board and say, okay, here's the priorities from the master planning effort we just did. Here's the expected financial ability to raise bond money with Propo.
Right.
At that point, the board may opt to consider maybe another bond measure or not, depending on what we're looking at the time, and depending on how much we can do with what Propo is remaining. The biggest issue, I think, Mr. Butler, for the rest of the CBOC is we've got $464 million worth of authority left. The problem is getting to that authority because of the $30 per 100,000 assessed valuation available. Some districts, and I'm not saying all districts, but some districts like Chula Vista Elementary, San Diego Unified, have stacked another bond measure on top of an existing bond measure to be able to get at more money faster. The other way to do that is to use a cap and defer the payments, but again, we can see how that can get you in trouble with paying back 10 times the amount. So there's financial opportunities that Dr. Alt is well more qualified to speak to than I. I'll get the plan in place, and then he'll figure out, along with the financial advisor, on how best to get it funded. Present that to the board.
Thank you.
Tom, I wanted to, maybe,
Hi, Mr. Guerrero.
I apologize. Maybe
That's all right.
others know what it's been talked about before, but was there a master plan? First of all, you said that this project, these design projects, was part of the previous.
The previous.
Okay. Was there a master plan that was developed subsequent to the housing first?
No. There was an update done in 2009, which is right after the burst, but it wasn't much consequence.
So there hasn't been a plan to deal with the issue of the housing first?
Correct.
Any other
A simple question, how much are we talking about with this design? How much does the design cost?
I think the design cost, if, let me go to the M1 real quick. I lose track of all my projects, but it's like $240,000, I think.
240,000?
300,000, something like that.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, we have,
Which one's the M1?
Can you wait till the very end, or you want to do it? We'll do it now. That's just.
Well, I just want clarification on two things. Mr. Calhoun, you said that there was that afterwards, after the conduit and all the electrical stuff, that we would do an amendment after the design if we move forward on that. Why not put that in the initial design and avoid the change order?
There is no change order, it's an amendment to a design document. So what we did is we pulled out Mr. Chair, we added the conduit and the electrical, per suggestion of the BOC. We took out, and then we're taking out the bidding, award, and construction, administration, and closeout costs out of the amendment. So we're actually taking money away from the architect, so there'll be a net savings to the district. I think it's about $98,000 out of that. About, 200, and let me look at the financials right now to give you an exact.
But you said that you were going to then, after the money is available, then the design, we would have to go back.
Well, then we'll just
And
add that
then
back into the
design for
architect's
lighting.
contract. We would just, no, we won't design for lighting. The design for lighting will be in there. The conduit and everything for the lighting will be in the designs. What we'll do is we'll have to go back and we'll just amend the architect's contract to add back in the cost for them to bid, award, and do the construction administration of that job, once we get the money for construction. So we're just talking right now about design development of the plans, not about construction.
Any other comments?
Yes, a couple things. The Bond Oversight Committee, I don't know if you all realize this, but in December 12th of 2011, $300,000 was taken to update the long-range facilities master plan. And I've been going to these meetings for 4 years and never heard that. Additionally, if you go on board docs, in 2006, 7, 8, and 9, there's master plans. So you had said one hadn't been done since 2009.
No update was done since 2009. The $300,000 is a budget number, it's not been expended. That's the money set aside to award this new long-range facility master plan. It's in the budget.
That's been there all along, as I recall.
It's
been there since I got here.
2011?
Hmm?
2011?
It's been here since I've been here.
Yeah, it's been there a long time, ever since
Ever since I got here, the $300,000 was sitting in the long-range facility master plan line item as a budget line.
Okay, and with regards to, I can somewhat speak to some of the schools, other schools, for example, Benita, because I've been approached, my grandson goes there, and I've been approached by several parents asking me, what can they do to get some of this Prop O money? And I said, well, they're upgrading the HVAC, and they said, okay, and I said, well, you need to get together a group of parents and inform your stakeholders, and so which parents are you speaking to, sir?
So I'm hearing from the school staff, and I'm not talking to any parents because the parent group only forms when there's a project. The project design, I guess, had input from stakeholders, and I don't know which stakeholders, because we don't organize the school site stakeholder committee. That's developed by the school. So if they're interested, they can certainly contact Martina, the principal, to talk with her.
Yeah, I think the master plan process, as long as I'm as chair and we've got this committee, I think we're going to be involved in the process to make sure that the stakeholders and the taxpayers and everybody who ought to have a shot at it gets their input on it.
So I'm looking at the financial analysis from September, the M1, and the total for the Benita Vista track and field design, which includes the bleachers and the stadium area and all the path of travel, was $500,000. It was $125,000 from CFD, and I guess that's $375 from Prop O. And so we're taking out about $98,000 of that, so we'll have about $400,000 committed. Some of it's CFD, some of it Prop O.
Okay, why don't we move along and then we
Yeah.
can get questions at the end.
Sure. Castle Park High, Title IX improvements, basically right there, The judge is coming out to review it, so we're hoping to get everything done completely right. There's the dugouts. It's $1.7 million total project cost between the different contracts and the upgrades to the team rooms and the fields. And it's basically complete, punch list left to do. Chula Vista High School backstops and fencing is out to bid. October 14th will be the bid opening date. Granger Junior High, the health clinic is about 90% complete. They had a job walk to identify punch list items earlier this week. Track and field design at Hilltop High doesn't include the stadium area because it's got bleachers that are fine, but it's the track and field and the plat that travel to it. Montgomery High Project 2, we just saw that one. Your substantial progress has been made. When it says construction is 50% complete, that's not 50% complete on those buildings, it's 50% complete of the entire construction project, which included a lot of upgrades outside of those two buildings. Those two buildings are really a lot of the volume left to go on that. And there's pouring the slab, block going up. Montgomery Middle, we're here, beautiful place, well received by the site, had a great grand opening, and we're just working on some punch list items. There's a couple cracks in the colored concrete outside that we're calling the guy back to redo, because he didn't put the score lines in like he was supposed to, so it cracked. Minor issues like that. Functionally, it's a great project. It's 18 classrooms and LEED platinum. It's going to be a wonderful project. And here we are in the library. There's a picture of the library. And the rest of the site. National City Middle School 2. 2 buildings are down. We've demoed. We did a bunch of utility work over the break, and then we're starting to, get the site prep for construction. And we'll demolish one last building when we're done. And there's the excavation for the building.
That must have presented, if I made some real challenges to National City Middle with such a small campus.
It was, and we had both the Air Resources Board, the AQMD, San Diego Air Quality Management District, and OSHA out because there were some complaints, and one guy said, this is the cleanest demo site I've ever been to. I mean, we had 2 water trucks. They were demoing during the summer. We had to do a lot of pavement. We had about $400,000 in lead and asbestos abatement to do in those 2 buildings. And so we spent a lot of time doing that, getting it clean so that we could demolish it. And
It's such a small footprint, the campus itself.
And this is going to actually open up that footprint. And where the portables are on the west side of the campus, or the east side of the campus, those are going to be moved. And then once the buildings are built, it'll be opened up.
We're not replacing that
A larger
larger building?
Well, yeah, we're getting a new classroom building. The new classroom building is going to take the place of, I don't have the picture of it here, the rendering, but I've showed you the rendering before. There's one 2-story building there now. It's going to be the L along the street up
Okay.
the south end of the site. So it'll be perpendicular, share the same elevator.
Yeah.
Southwest Middle increment 1B. We relieved APR. We're finishing up bid packages with advertised the next couple of weeks for another contractor to come in. Increment 1B, bid documents are complete for construction, so we're going to get those done. And then the final one is being designed right now, and they'll be complete with design probably early next year. And that's for the last building on the campus, which is the auditorium music area. Welding building 2, about 80% complete, so minor items were pointed out by the DSA field inspector, so we're taking care of those. And they should be done by winter break, and then they'll open up classes in January. Site restoration for parking lot will be done once we're completed at the solar, which is wrapping up now. And then that's about ready to be connected to the grid, and then the parking lot will be done after that. Track and field, it's probably really more like 99% at this point. We're having a grand opening on Friday, you're all invited. If you want to go, let Ceci know so she can get you a VIP parking pass and get you on.
What time is that?
Gates open at 3, the actual program starts at 5.
What? Well, I mean, what do you, I'm gonna go, I wanna see the thing, I spent a lot of Friday nights on that field. So.
It's level now.
Well,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, I know, I had a lot of football coaches tell me that's the reason they couldn't win games, because it was not level, but where do I sit? I mean, do I stand? I mean, is there?
We'll have a
What's-
place for you up
Really?
on or up front,
Oh my
on
God.
the field.
Oh.
Don't worry, the BOC will be accommodated, any members.
So any remarks I should keep to less than 20 minutes?
Probably won't be the speaking part. I think there's enough politicians that will speak. The City of National City donated block grant funds, $200,000, and it's joint use, they get some use out of it. Guaranteed hours a week, and then the NFL Charger grant provided $200,000 out of a $3.1 million budget. So,
Should have kept the money.
Was it like a Chargers have discretionary money?
yeah, NFL grants to communities, they sponsor it with the home team. It really comes out of New York. You got to check out of New York for it. So it comes out of the NFL.
So Roger
offices.
Goodell signs a check?
Yeah, right.
They took in 10 billion last year, they can afford it.
Yes, they.
Okay, fire alarms, Chula Vista Middle, Hilltop High, Montgomery High. I actually just signed the pay app the other day. It's at 52%. This was done at the end of the month, last month, so it's continues to go forward. And then we'll be bidding out Chula Vista High, going out to bid right now. And then there's 10 projects done by JCE engineers that'll be bid out later this year. And then one big project at Sweetwater High will be done during the summer because it's very intrusive. And then East Lake High, looking at doing one next summer as well. Solar at 17 sites. We've got the first 6 in, the next 6 are going, and then the third phase will go in the spring. So there's the list of the projects. So I'm open to questions.
Okay. Does any members have any questions on any of these projects? But you're not a member.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Not yet.
No, not ever. Thank you.
No member has any questions?
Actually, I do. On the fire alarm, did you guys talk about the fire alarm?
No, I was hoping somebody
right
would
there.
bring it up first.
So Tom, I'm curious, okay, during these upgrades and during the the work, with everything that we've been seeing about them, and you're saying not till next year, is there something like a plan, just meanwhile, to fix some of these, like, they're saying that some of the alarms over at East Lake High School, when the classrooms aren't working, that's not on here, but, so you're saying until next year they won't be getting fixed, so meanwhile, these upgrades are, what is the temporary fix for that?
Okay, so I'll tell you what I told the reporter who failed to report that
Okay.
on the thing that you saw in the news, is that all our facilities meet the minimum fire code requirements for a fire alarm system. They said there were 365 fire alarms that were inoperative. We only have 28 fire alarms. We have one at each of our sites. There's many components at East Lake. There's, I think, 900, almost 1,000 components in there. And when we do an NFPA inspection, we look at every component, except for on the fire loops, we're only required to look at 20% of them, because fire loops are for property protection, not necessarily for providing fire life safety. Smoke detectors, dampers, horns, sirens, strobes are for that. So at East Lake High, out of the 986 out of almost 1,000 components, East Lake High had deficiencies of 18 deficiencies, which included 24 devices. So there are 24 devices out of about 1,000 that had something wrong with them. A lot of them were fire loops. Fire loops are a lower priority to us. When I see a smoke detector out, that's a #1 emergency for response. 3 issues have been fixed at East Lake so far, and we have work orders in to cover the rest of them. And I hired a new tech this year. When I got here, they only had 1 low volt tech, Clem Manzano. He's an NFPA certified engineer. Not only is he a technician, but he's also an engineer. And he's really a quality guy and does a lot of work, but he's overwhelmed, so I needed some help. So I got David Scott, his other alter ego, helping. We also put out the upgrades, which are upgrades. Those are not fixes. The fixes, we've got POs. I've got about 10 POs that I've issued to Time and Alarm or to Standard Electronics, who are NFPA certified vendors. You may have seen a story on TV where a former BOC member said that his son did not hear the alarm and got a PA announcement that, well, the alarm was a false alarm, so he disregarded and never heard the alarm. Well, that's because it was a false alarm because a kid pulled a pull station in one part of the campus, and when you pull it in a zone, it activates that zone. When you pull a pull station on a campus, a high school campus with 13, 14, 15 large buildings, you don't evacuate all the buildings. The pull station is to that zone. So those alarms went off in that zone. So those kids heard it. So they said on the PA, once they caught the kid running around and pulled the thing, it was a false alarm disregard. Well, he heard it on the other side of campus. He obviously didn't hear the alarm because you're hundreds of yards away. You may not have heard it. So those are things that are just issues that occur on fire alarm systems. All the fire alarms systems are checked by the fire marshal. Every year, all schools are checked by the fire marshal of each city. Most of our schools are in Chula Vista. Half of them are. The rest of them are in either, this one's in San Diego. We got some in actually 2 at the adult school annex in Imperial Beach, and we've got 4 up in National City. So every year, the fire marshals come through generally in June or July and review and look at it. And they don't just look at the fire alarms, they look at the entire fire issues for them on the campus. Can they drive their truck on? Is there gate and access? Is there a fire hydrant available? Is there a standpipe available? Are the hazardous waste or hazardous materials stored appropriately, like you saw in the science lab? Is the panels in the electrical rooms clear, or has the custodian dumped a bunch of extra furniture in there and not put it in a bin? So these are the things that fire marshals review when they come through. So we had the one from IB go through. I talked to Fire Marshal Justin Gibson at the City of Chula Vista the other day. We provided him with all the reports we had, and he's going out and he said he's going to be looking at the schools. He said, fine.
Okay, let's see, who had their hand? Mr. Creator.
I didn't ask this before because I thought we were just dealing with the actual project here, but dealing with the fire alarms, I looked at 2 or 3 of the actual reports. They're about 10 pages long. And as you say, like in some of the bigger schools, they're looking at 500 to 1,000 different items. Now, when they come to check annually and they find deficiencies, I didn't see anywhere, maybe I missed it, was there deficiencies which are at a higher level which have to be dealt with immediately, and it says in the report?
No, it doesn't say that. It says what the item is.
Okay.
So if it's a heat loop, we know that's not a high priority. That's for property protection. If it's a enunciator, it's not anything big deal. Smoke detectors, strobes, panels, the fire alarm panel itself.
The point that I want to get to is if there's something major, do they come back?
They don't, but the fire marshal may come back. What we do is the NFPA requires institutions, whether it be a hospital or whether it be a school, to do an annual fire inspection of all its components, 20% of the heat detectors and everything else. So we got that report. We go through it, we review it, we go do work orders, and we prioritize. And our priorities are, if there's a building that has multiple deficiencies in it that are life safety issues like smoke detectors or fire dampers or strobes in a bathroom, for example. A strobe in a bathroom is more critical than a strobe in a hallway. So if there's a hearing impaired child in a bathroom, they may be alone. If there's a strobe that's out in a hallway, it's not as critical because there's other people that can have auditory senses and hear the alarm go off, so they can then, go with the hearing impaired child. So that's how we triage the priorities.
But you said that fire marshal may come out if it's something major. And what were there instances where they needed to this past year when they,
A fire marshal came out to Mar Vista Academy, formerly known as Mar Vista Middle School, and that was in the city of San Diego. And the battalion chief came out and came up to notify the principal that he was going to do a fire inspection. He did. He looked at the panel. He said it was fine. And then the principal said, "Oh, by the way, the fire marshal from your battalion was here yesterday inspecting the whole school." And so with that in mind, apparently there was higher visibility on the fire alarms.
well, but let's say after the reports come out and it's determined that there's something major,
Some deficiency.
then somebody will come back.
Correct.
Somebody other than a district employee.
We call back the people, from time alarm when they do the next inspection. They come back and they check to see if it was done.
And how long, what is this time frame?
Generally, they're annual inspections. So every year.
No, but what I mean is if there's something major that's wrong, is there a safeguard to make sure that's taken care of?
So we have risk management and safety in our district as opposed to facilities. They're not in my line of reporting. And Todd Torgerson's our risk manager, so he does all the certifications and inspections and things like that. And we do the repairs and maintenance and building. So there's oversight from our safety coordinator, who's Cesar Gonzalez, who gets a copy of the report and has those.
And so the district still stands by the statement that all of the sites were in compliance?
All the sites had operating fire alarm systems. Yes. And if they weren't, the fire marshal would have shut them down.
Last meeting, in August, you said they were in code compliance. Is that correct, that they are in code compliance?
They meet the minimum requirements of NFPA to operate as a fire alarm system, yes. That's the California Fire Code. Are there things that need to be fixed? Yes. When you have 1,000 components, you might have a dozen that are, needing to be repaired or replaced.
So before I get to Dr. Grubb's question, just the final one, and then I have some others. So when you say code compliance, you can have some of those deficiencies that were identified in those reports and still be within code compliance?
Absolutely.
Because that's a distinction, okay. Dr. Grubb.
Through the chair, I have a couple questions. First, and I think it's an important one for me to ask Mr. Calhoun. Wouldn't a regular inspection by a fire marshal, which occurs, I think, not just an annual, but a regular inspection of facilities, wouldn't that pick up any problem that would exist and require it to be fixed forthwith?
Not necessarily.
I'm talking about a major problem. In other words, not something that would be a minor problem, but something that was alerted. If somebody pulled a fire alarm or a smoke detector that detected smoke, it would be found out through that inspection?
For the most part, I would say yes.
So-
Not in every case.
Well, we're human.
Each fire marshal is a little bit different the way they run their inspections.
Absolutely. And, we're human. And so we're bound to have fallibilities. The second part of the question is, where does this kind of information come from that there's a problem in the Sweetwater Union High School District fire protection of our students, when you all are checking it on a regular basis? What anonymous person goes out and does this and creates a hoopla for everybody involved, and then it comes out that they didn't muster? didn't match muster. It just concerns me that we have all of this time wasted on staff, wasted on this board's time. I mean, if it was really a problem, wouldn't it have been discovered on a regular inspection?
Well, I've had instances where the fire marshals found, when I was at San Diego Unified, a couple fire alarm systems that were basically inoperable. The panels failed for some reason. And the district is allowed to set up what's known as a fire watch. A person that's dedicated to walk up and down the halls, to check trash cans, to check waste dumpsters, to check rooms day in, day out during occupancy, and report a fire manually if needed. We don't have to do that. If the fire marshal found something, or an inspection found something that was of that magnitude, that school would have been shut down. None of our schools have.
So I rest my comments. I mean, in other words, what I'm saying is that I think that our students are well protected. If they're not, things should be fixed. But, to create a problem when there really isn't one is a problem for me. How do you feel about that?
Well, the thing that really got me was when the file footage was shown on the TV, the first TV show, they showed a residence on fire, a residential unit on fire. The file footage wasn't even a school. And and it was a sensationalistic banner, "Are your children safe?"
Well, that's
So-
not reliable journalism, in
So
my
in
estimation.
my estimation, we've been giving information, I've been working with our PIO to give information to the channel that did run the story, provided that, and the person opted either not to use it or to use only a partial part of that information.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I have one last question.
Oh,
And just to follow up, as far as like Prop O funds, so let's say you did find something that was faulty or needed repairs, would Prop O funds be available immediately, or would you have to use like operating funds that you have on hand?
So we have Prop O funded fire alarm upgrade projects. I also have what's known as deferred maintenance money that I can use on issues that have a problem. And on these, the ones that are deficient, that we find, every time we have an inspection, there's, a dozen or so elements of the school that need to be fixed or repaired. We use deferred maintenance money.
So basically, there is money if there is a problem.
Well, I prioritize the money. Is there,
Oh, yeah.
is there enough money to do the job? I think I've run you guys through the numbers before, and we have about a third of what we need out there.
Yeah, but your safety is your priority, so no matter what, the safety comes from, and like you said, the property stuff will be put second hand to.
And again, in this October M1 report, I'll be reducing the designs of those fields by significant amounts, about 100,000 each, and put that money in contingency, which is going to be sequestered for the top priority, which is the fire alarm program.
Is there a question? There's a question.
I'm going to sequester the money. But then use it later.
any other, before I hear from the public, is there any other comments? I'll have some closing question and we'll move on. But we have public comments.
Yeah, Kathy will go first.
I'm passing some information out to all of you that I just want to bring to your attention. After Prop O was passed, Harris and Associates came in. This item, I just want to say for transparency purposes, was withdrawn. But you'll see at the bottom of the page, one of the new Prop O projects back in 2007 was district-wide fire alarm system. We then have the second page is dated December 14th, 2009. The board ratified an expenditure for payment for the upgrades to go to DSA. These upgrades sat in DSA until a couple of months ago. They were getting ready to expire, I believe, December of this year. The third piece of paper I have is basically the district doing damage control after the Channel 10 story. Now, as you all just heard, I am on the Stakeholders Committee for Prop O Phase 2 at Montgomery. At the beginning of the project, the district came in and stated to us that there were a couple things that needed to be done at Montgomery, and we should be paying for them out of our Prop O monies. One of those projects was the parking lot, and the other project was Title IX. we were never told that the fire alarms needed to be upgraded. So my question is, why? I do not understand that. I too contacted the fire marshal of Chula Vista. I didn't speak to Justin Gibson, I spoke to someone else. Basically, what they told me is that they're short-staffed, and they really do not go out to the schools and do these fire alarm checks. So there is a contradiction. I'm not saying which one is correct. For a whistleblower to come forward in this district and potentially lose their job, to go on TV camera, it just isn't done. There were major concerns over this. And you know, we can sit here and debate whether they knew, whether they didn't know, whether it was important, how important it was. But I have to tell you, I have a real problem with this district hiding skeletons. This issue dates back to 2007. Before Dr. Brand came back, he was gone. Before Mr. Calhoun was here. So why not just say, we have a problem, we messed up, we're going to move on, we're going to get this fixed. Do you not think with me on that committee, and I knew that fire alarms were a concern, and our fire alarms right now are being redone. And it happened to be mentioned at one of my stakeholder meetings. And I said, well, when is the meeting for that? Oh, well, you don't need to go to that, Mrs. Cheers. Well, guess who kind of went to that one? It was me. And what did I learn at that meeting? That the fire alarm company that the district has hired outside of our project, and we're working on fire alarms for the new buildings, the 2 new buildings that we're putting in over there. Well, we were going to put in a new panel. Well, guess what the other company was going to be putting in? A new panel. But the district didn't realize that. Dummy, little old, almost 64-year-old Mrs. Cheers picked that up. So my concern is this. I don't think we're operating in a responsible manner. And we don't need to point the fingers and say this one's to blame or that. Let's just fix it and move on. And you know, after the story was written about the private investigator at my home, there is another major potential fiasco coming down the pike. I walked outside my door last Sunday and felt my doormat kind of heavy. And I looked under it and there was a big envelope. Another skeleton. So I'm just saying one thing. We can all work together and get this district the way it should be. Or we can sit here and BS. And that is not what we should be doing. Thank you very much.
Any other, oh, we have one other.
Just I'd like to know what was in the envelope.
I'm hoping it's not as bad as it seems, but it has nothing to do with safety. It has to do with fiduciary irresponsibility in the millions.
Bravo.
Yes, it's mine.
Well,
So as soon as I take a look at it and confirm it is what it
we
is,
ought to know about that.
you definitely will, sir.
Dr. Grubb.
Through the chair, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your comments, Ms. Cheers. When I asked the question of Mr. Calhoun, I asked them specifically to get the information. He represents the district, and he represents the board at this meeting. So when he tells me that, for the most part, or primarily, things are operating properly and our students are protected, then I'm going to accept that and expect that they are. A lot of the things that have happened in 2006, 2007, and beyond, and before I was even involved in any of this, and for most of the people who were on this panel. I think you know by now, after a year of having seen this panel change, that we are about accountability, transparency, and verifiability. And I think that if it proves out that there is something that hasn't been taken care of, and that there's a bona fide disconnect between the district and then Mr. Calhoun's department and at the facilities. And we haven't discovered that at this particular meeting, then I would say, well done for bringing it to the floor. I only bring it up because a lot of these things are well in the past. That doesn't mean they should be neglected, but we're trying to move forward and make sure that the people who are on the school board now and the district employees know full well that somebody is actually watching and having accountability for their actions. And I think that's the most important thing. You know, I can't tell you how much I respect the different people that are on this committee, because they're all professional, and they all have their heart in the right place. And they will not let any stone go unturned, nor will they allow any kind of misrepresentation of the funds or the behavior within the district that's occurred in the past. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have a question.
Terry?
Relative to the page 2 that Mrs. Shear done. So the issue design contract, this was 2007. Basic question is that what we're seeing reflected in fire alarm upgrades code, changes to, as reflected in our Propo master plan. That's in response to that, so the work we talked about being mandated in 2007 is underway.
Right, so the 2007 fire code is still operable, and those items are still legitimate California Fire Code, under Title 24, and the NFPA requirements, still legitimate designs. There have been some changes, as Mr. Shears pointed out. It's not the only place where we found some overlap, because you can imagine over the course of the last 5 years, there's been issues with, new construction, demolition, and things have changed. So when we go in with the design, we have the engineer, Clem Malzano, my fire protection tech, review those with our project manager and the electrical engineer, and make sure that the scope is correct before it goes out to bid.
Well, I just gotta say, I mean, in my mind, there are two issues here, and I, having missed the August meeting, boy, did I pick the wrong one to miss. That must have been a lot of fun. I'm a little bit behind the curve on this, but I see two issues with this. One, relative to Propo. Fire alarms being incorporated in the Propo, where they are needed and where they're going to be, and is that being taken care of? And listening to you, I'm pretty happy with that. I also think hiring 2 more fire system engineers is probably pretty, or hiring one guy, or adding,
I had one.
adding to your staff in there is like a pretty good idea. The other comment I'm going to make, and from a Propo position, it's a bit specious or whatever, but you will never. There's no board, us, no committee, nobody sitting in the district office is ever going to make sure all these fire alarm things work or they are being maintained. I dealt with it in the Navy. That was my job for a while, and nobody takes care of safety equipment. It's all over the place, and you don't get it fixed because it doesn't belong to me, kind of thing. So the one thing I would say is there needs to be a program at each school that doesn't involve us, doesn't involve anybody in the district office, but involves the school administration and the school staff going around and looking at these things, putting eyes on them, and when there's something wrong, calling you, calling somebody, because I know you'll fix it if you know it's broke, but you know what happens, these things get broke, and it was that way last week, it was that way last year, oh, they never fix it. Before you know it, somebody's calling Channel 10, I don't know who this camera's with, but Channel 10, whatever. And you got this big thing going on, and a little bit of attention and responsibility and ownership from the people on site would have solved the problem a long time ago before you get to this level. Because there ain't nothing any of us sitting around here can do about that stuff. It's gonna break and need to be fixed. The people who own the school, take care of the school, live there, need to accept some ownership for some of these things.
Mr. Crater,
I just wanted to make a comment. When I read the article a couple days ago about the fact that there was 300 plus, I don't remember the word they used, deficiencies, something. It kind of alarmed me. So I decided to go on and, I guess there's a little map that shows all the schools, and then you can look at the actual reports and so forth, and I checked a few of them, and I got to the first one, and there was, as Mr. Calhoun stated, like at East Lake, it's close to 1,000 little items that they checked. So, I agree with the comment from the article that even one thing not working is unfavorable. But then I started checking, and some of them were like, the label was missing. Some of them, it could be any number of things, and that's why when I came to this meeting today, I wanted to find out if there was a way of determining from those reports exactly what was really crucial. I mean, they're all crucial, but something that we had to fix immediately. And because you add up, there was 29 sites, and there could have been somewhere around probably 10,000 to 20,000 different items, and you have 300 deficiencies. So in that sense, it's not that major, unless they're important things. And at this point, I'm kind of new to this board, but at this point, I have to take Mr. Calhoun's word that they are in compliance until we find something that shows that, you know, they weren't and they knew they weren't. So that's my comments.
Mr. Dotto?
The NFPA they're an independent entity, right?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
They are the National Fire Protection Association.
So when they did this report that I pulled off,
Mr. Dawson, they don't do the report. The report was done by a vendor we hired to do the report under the auspices of the NFPA. I think Section 72 requires annual reports to
okay,
be done by qualified technicians.
okay, so when they say that there are no alarms at Montgomery High in the 1,000 portable buildings, and there probably won't be until January, that's a true statement, correct?
There's pull stations only.
In the portables. So why would they say that there are no alarms?
Don't know.
But they're an entity reporting and making a report to the other entity that reports to the district, correct?
Well, it's the vendor that's doing the report.
And has the vendor been questioned? Because on this list, there's many issues that say in the boys' locker room, girls' locker room, that there's no alarms. And that's at Mar Vista. Hilltop High School, which is fairly new construction, there's also some questions. You specified Eastlake High School, and you said there are 24 devices that don't work. That's one too many. Actually, that's 23 too many, especially because I live right there. So I'm not sure if the district, if you guys question the vendor on the information that they reported out, because they reported out that there are alarms missing, that there are alarms not working. And if you guys want to see this, I mean, I just printed it off the website, but that was one of my questions.
And so 498 have been completed already.
You know, let me interject myself here as chair. I think, I don't want to totally cut you off. There are a lot of these questions are pretty detail oriented, and I'm going to let you continue a little bit. I think it almost speaks to having a subcommittee or somebody to really, because I have to say, in my own mind, I still have a lot of questions, but I don't think those questions can be answered today on some of these specifics of the fire alarms. But did you have a little bit more to cover, or?
Yes.
A little bit. Why don't you finish?
A
and
little
then
bit
I'll
more.
Okay, and then we'll move on to the rest of the agenda, but I do have some final comment on this. Go ahead.
The Clem person that works for the district, he's fire safety certified 100%, can go to any of the, okay, because I wanted to make sure that he was completely certified. Now, if the heat sensors are not an important component of the alarm systems, first of all, why would they have been installed, and wouldn't the heat sensors send the cue to the fire alarm to activate? I know that that's how they're installed in my buildings.
They do, and 20% of them are required to be inspected because they're not as important as a smoke detector or a damper. They're primarily for property protection. They're primarily there for after hours, breaks, sensing heat or a short or something. And generally, heat detectors are placed in the interstitial place above the ceiling, and smoke detectors are below the ceiling. So it is an early indication of a problem. It is looped into the fire alarm, but again, for life safety purposes, its primary function is really for property, where the smoke detectors are for life safety.
So and based on the press release that came out of the district basically, they self-insure, they're in a pool, correct?
Well, right, and we pay, we're part of the JPA.
So, discounts they're not given because of heat sensors.
They are.
Because I know that we're in a pool and the discounts are given because of the size of the pool, not because of what my specific business does or doesn't do. It's the size of the pool, so that was kind of an incorrect statement, but, now, if buildings have fire alarms that aren't working, and if there are portable buildings that state here that don't have them, they are required to have a fire watch on premises. We don't have fire watches on premises. You stated that.
What I'm saying is, if the fire marshal found a problem where they required us to have a fire watch, we would post a fire watch.
But the district knows that there's a problem, and there are problems with buildings that don't have fire alarms, so why wouldn't the district say,
So for a fire watch is posted at a building with multiple classrooms, with a hallway. For a portable building, for example, it's a self-contained building, it exits to the outside. The fire watch in essence is the teacher inside. There is no need for a fire watch because there's no space outside the classroom. It could be, like a trash can in a restroom, for example, in a building, where a kid smoking in the bathroom could throw a cigarette in and start a fire in a classroom in a hallway, where then a fire watch would have to go up and down the hall, check the restrooms every 15, 20 minutes as they were performing the fire watch duties.
because it says also on this list that there are fire alarms missing in locker rooms and restrooms. So,
If those are the case, then those are on our list to be fixed. If they were torn off by the kids or something since the last inspection.
a fire alarm isn't torn off by a kid without the district knowing. I'm sorry, Mr. Calhoun, I'm not that stupid.
Matty, you've got great points, and you've been with us a long time on this. A lot of these questions, and they're great questions, and in my own mind, I would like to see more of them answered more thoroughly in a different environment. And I don't forget them. I won't forget them. I assure you that as chair, but we do have the rest of the committee, and they're great points. What I want to, in closing, before we move on to the agenda, I want to make a couple points, and we are an independent committee, and I perhaps have a little bit different view on this. And I'm not like an expert on fire alarms or anything like that, but nor will I ever be. But I look at actions, having worked in government and so on for a long time and so on, like David, and I look at the actions of the district relative to when the media accounts began to be forthcoming. And there are actions that would indicate that this had been languishing and hadn't been paid attention to, and now we went full steam ahead to issuing bids and going forward quickly and making this the top priority. Fire alarm updates, and every last penny of the program contingency was going into fire alarms. Where I never had heard that before, really, when I'd been on the committee since almost 2 years now. So it indicates to me that the fire alarm situation wasn't given a high priority, and maybe is cause for concern. Which brings the issue: what other areas are there skeletons in the closet that we're not knowing about, that the district is afraid to let us know about?
Well,
So-
I do have to not object, but I'm not sure. We've been assured, or we've been told, and then maybe it's back to the issue of the master plan, but I understand completely the notion that fire alarms be upgraded by Propo funding when the school goes through a process of repair, and that's part of Propo. Now, if there's other actions that need to be done with fire alarms, okay, okay, fine, but I don't know, Nick, I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say that all of a sudden the Prop O funding is being directed toward fire alarms because of the current flap. I mean, the way I'm understanding, what I'm hearing is that in terms of Prop O dollars on the projects that we have oversight of sitting here, the fire alarm upgrades would have been included in the Prop O funding anyway.
Through the chair.
Now, one thing I gotta say relative to this is that if the fire alarms are a larger issue, then they need to go beyond just the scope of this committee's oversight as well, and committees like the DAC and so forth need to be engaged maybe at the district level as well, instead of just us talking about it here. But, you know, I'm not quite as, use the term alarmist as you, Nick, about this being a Prop O flap in terms of doing fire alarms correctly.
Okay, Dr. Grubb, and then if there's any others, then we'll move on.
I want to make it brief. I think Mr. Butler and I were just sidebarring here a little bit, and I think what I have tried to understand over the last year is what is the function of this committee and what are we supposed to be doing. And I think that we are primarily in our position to make sure the funds are properly spent that are entitled Prop O bond funds. And that if they aren't, we need to cause an assessment of why they haven't been and cause the process to be scrutinized. What has, I think, transpired here, and I have to be a little careful, I guess, about how I say it, because I don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time, I want to make sure that what has been asked of this committee, I believe, goes far beyond the scope of what this committee is intended to do. In other words, to me, it has become a sounding board in many ways for the processes that should be directed to the school board and to the administration so that those things get done properly, efficiently, and honestly. And that those kinds of comments that you're bringing here will never be turned away. We want to listen to them. You know that from the past experience this past year. But I think the comments really need to be directed to the school board, because those are the people who have been entrusted by the votes of the community to act on these types of things. And I think that if they aren't acting upon them, then they're derelict in their duties. And they should be called accountable for that dereliction of their duties. We, on the other hand, will look at the monies that are spent and see that they are properly spent. And I guess that's a long-winded statement about it, but I think it kind of goes to the thoughts of everybody on this committee. I believe if I were speaking for everybody, I would hope that they would be thinking, in a sense, the same thing, that we have been a sort of a sounding board. All due respect to the people in the public arena, you can come here, as far as I'm concerned, and speak about those issues anytime you wish. But
the fact that you listen to us, Dr. Grubb, is a plus. And please understand, sir, with all due respect, I have been at every board meeting for the past 4 years. And with 4 out of 5 board members indicted, we are not being heard. And with all due respect to every one of you, you, Mr. Calhoun, and UCC, I will continue to come here because you, gentlemen, I respect. And you may not like listening to what I have to say, but I realize I'm taking up your time, and I don't apologize for it. Because with all of you and your collective expertise, I expect you to listen. And when I hand you documents, damn it, I'm gonna cry. When I hand you documents that are 7 years old almost, hello, that means something.
And it have to do with Prop O.
That's all,
yeah,
sir.
absolutely.
And I do use you as a sounding board. God knows Mr. Butler's been listening to me for longer than you have.
Is that why you look older? You got more, a little more hair.
Don't go there now.
My
Christopher has one final
One
comment.
final comment, and then maybe we can move on.
Yes.
I totally agree with everything that's being said. I came up in the district, I had kids in the district, I know a lot of employees in the district still. And I think there are a lot of skeletons out there. I hear about them all the time. I think Tom is trying to do a good job and trying to correct some of the problems. I agree, we have some issues with the board members not listening to the public and everything. I don't think the total story's out there on a lot of things yet, quite frankly. I think it's appalling that some of this stuff was done 7 years ago and it just sat there. We talked about it before, when the schools were remodeled and they put new buildings in and they upgraded for the new buildings, everything should have been right there because they put new things into the new buildings and the old system didn't necessarily integrate with the new system. That should have been done at the same time all that was being done. I think you understand that, and I think going forward, I think hopefully we're not going to see that. As something new goes in, and something old has to be corrected to make it match up, it'll be part of the funding, part of the process. It's just been poorly handled up to now, a lot of these things, and I totally agree with you in that respect and everything. But I do think, Tom, you're trying to do the right thing. You really need probably 3 or 4 people where you've got 2 now. And that's just part of, the board. You've got to go and ask the board for the funding to do that, to hire those people, and they have to approve it. And for them to approve it, they've got to hear from the public, and if the only way they're going to hear from the public is you talking to us and the press covering our meetings, well, then we've said that if that's the way we have to do it, we have to do it through the press. And I totally agree with that.
And I did not go to the press, just
No,
for
no,
another
no.
clarification. That was some old footage of me on there. I was as surprised as you are about that.
And-
That was
Okay.
August
We move on.
18th.
Moving right along.
Yeah, funny how you just live on forever.
Tom, why don't you move on? Where did we leave off? We're on the projects,
Then we're on the financial.
We're going to the financial.
financials.
Okay, so what I did this month, just as a recap, the note number 1, cost to date differs from the M1 report in the board agenda due to the timing differences between the district accounting system and Prolog. Prolog is real time. When the invoice comes in, it gets logged. The district accounting system is, by the time it goes to the board on the M1 report, is about 6 to 7 weeks in arrears, because it closes out the previous month. And I'll show you the M1 report here. There was no change in the September M1, but it's provided for as reference. The Propo activity summary, as you can see, it's wound down a bit over the last couple months from the summer crunch. We did July 2013, where we did about $6.7 million in payments because of the 2 major projects, and then a lot of the minor projects added up to that much. Went down to about 1.5. You're going to probably see in the 1.5 to $1 million a month range, maybe 2 in the future, because again, we don't have that much Propo money left. We're starting to use other funds, CFD funds, and other things on projects. Going into the specific financial summary, this agrees to the dollar with the M1 now. So the total, if you look at the current budget here in the left side and the revised budget under the M1, they should match up. The $305,042,042, that's all Propo funds, BB funds, state funds, QU funds, everything we're rolling into the program. Chula Vista High School, Project 1, the stadium repair, interim housing, was pretty much done. We'll probably close that one out soon. We have about $20,000 left. Chula Vista Middle School, this one's complete. Again, savings is in red there. Probably once we get commissioning done on that, we'll be closing that one out, and that'll be returned to contingency, which will go towards high priority projects. Hilltop High, the Title IX field in the interim housing is basically completed. There's a couple items with Valpole. We had some utility runs that we had to deal with. So that's going back in, and that's the final part of that. Montgomery High School, this is project one, to include the artificial track turf and the interim housing, is pretty much completed. We'll be able to close that one out quickly. We got a whopping $1 in savings, it looks like. The Montgomery Middle School project, where we're sitting today, is pretty much in a final closeout process. We're in the midst of releasing a parcel retention to the contractor. And then we're looking at Mar Vista High School. This is the Title IX, Project 1, interim housing is completed. I think closing that one out, the DSA maintenance finished up, a little bit of the work in the teacher's workroom. National City Middle School Project 1 is completed. We're doing a couple little items on warranty work. National City Project 2 is just really starting to get out of the ground. The demo is done, and we're working towards getting out of the ground with the slabs.
What does the CO rate mean?
Change order rate. Change order rate limit is 0.05% on this one, which is very, and really, you won't know what the change order rate ends up being until you get out of the ground, because there's conflicts. Once you get out of the ground, you get vertical, you get your steel in place. Generally, most change orders are completed. Then after that, change orders become owner requests. And that's where the principals, like maybe, I don't know, some former people in this room ask for things on projects that weren't put in the design.
All vitally important requests.
All vitally, of course.
Representing student interest.
And that's why, having a stakeholder group like they're doing at Montgomery too, they brought me a list of things and said, these are the high priority items, not just for the school, but for the stakeholder group. That holds more weight, I think, or something like that.
Thank you so much.
Southwest High School, this is project 1 and 1A. The only thing we're holding that money for, the almost $7 million, is the Hart lawsuit is going. We think we're gonna be able to settle that with a lot less than that money, which we would hope we can return that money to the contingency.
Thank you.
Southwest Middle School, ongoing project. This is 1A, 1B, mostly complete. They're doing some work over at portable area with some fencing. And then Sweetwater Union High School District, this is the large project, is basically complete. Doing some work on the EMCS system, so the air conditioning units talk to our electronic management system. Sweetwater track and field, we're going to be complete, probably within a week after the punch list. There's some items to finish up after the dedication, but it'll look really good, guys. And then the small projects, we got a list of any of the small projects you want me to talk about. If you look at the iPad initiative, there's no more money going forward for that. We do have $1.5 million set aside for technology infrastructure, and I did have a meeting today on technology infrastructure, and there is, Wi-Fi nodes that have to be improved at the high school.
But the iPads won't work if you don't have the technology infrastructure anyway.
Correct. Anything else on the Long Range Village Master Plan? The placeholder's $300,000. We won't know until we do the interviews and then open up the envelopes and do the, value-based scoring. That's where you take the money and you divide it by the points, and you get the best cost per point. So not necessarily the lowest cost person gets it, but the person that has the best value.
And I'm sorry, a point is?
A point on the rating scale that we give. Our project managers are doing the paper screening of the 7. We'll provide a list. I'm going to do a sit down with our person, our contracts manager, who will not show me who the firms are, but she'll give me a list of points, and I'll pick the break at either 3 or 4, depends on what the grouping is. If the grouping is clearly at 3, we'll do interviews for 3. If the grouping's at 4, we'll do interviews for 4. And then we'll have people come in, whoever they are, Southwest College, who just got through master planning, used to work here at the district and worked for the county before, so they're very familiar with the district. And then Ramon Leba, who has been in operations and in school systems, he represents the principals as a lead principal. So that will be coming up next week for interviews. Any questions on the financials?
Quickly.
Quickly, I'm just curious, Mr. Murnick, why isn't the Montgomery High School Phase 2 on here?
It is.
It is?
Let me go back to it.
Montgomery 1 is, unless I'm misreading it.
High school one. Huh,
It's not on here,
yeah, my apologies, Mrs. Chairs, it should have been on here.
only because it's going so well.
No, it's on the project report, it should be on here as well, on the financials.
I see small,
It's on, I mean,
project 2 gym,
it's on the,
summary page.
if you look on the summary sheet,
Right,
it's,
but that just shows 200,000 for the,
it's on the summary sheet of Montgomery Middle Project 2.
Only 2 items, 3 items.
I mean, I just would think it would have its own thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
it's so new it didn't include it.
no, it should have been on there.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, sir.
Small projects.
It'll be on there.
Montgomery High School.
So it'll be on there next time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay?
Just one last comment. I just want to make an observation. I was looking at all financial reports, Mr. Chair. And I'm looking at, you guys have been targeting the fire alarm upgrades for a while.
Yeah,
So it's not like anything new. You guys did have it in your scope.
absolutely.
They were the upgrades, not the deficiencies.
The upgrade,
So,
yeah, and the deficiencies, the report just came out. I mean, it's not like, we were sitting on it. We started the annual inspection in February, and we got the report in August.
Right. So I just wanted, I'm just looking, comparing all our financials from different ones, so making the point that just looking at the fire alarm upgrades, 2.6 million has been dedicated for months now. I've been here, so.
And we've awarded 1.2 million in the contract so far.
But it was in there for a while and just nothing was done with it.
Correct. We awarded a contract in August.
Thank you.
And that's
We're done with this report?
done on the financials. The next item is board items. So board items from the last board meeting. This is the recap. Here's the M1 report. Where's that? This is just a recap summary of the items. And you have your items that were sent out.
And thank you for
With all
getting
the-
the
with all the detail.
agenda items posted all in one place so we can look at them.
Right. And so, any question on the last board meeting items?
No. Anybody else have any? Okay.
Okay, here's the actual board items that were sent out. And these were sent out to you actually the Friday before the board meeting.
Yeah, and they were posted.
When they're posted.
Yeah, good. That's fantastic.
And so most of, like I said, nothing in Prop O on the M1 in September, all CFD stuff. And then here's the other, this is the M2 report, which all the consultants, and we only have one ratification. Not bad, huh?
Okay.
That's for a structural repair. Let's see, the next. Kind of updated you already on the program management update. That's the big thing, is long range plan. And I would leave it to the chair to select a member to represent.
So there's interviews,
The afternoon of the 16th, which is a week from today, would be from 1 to 5.
do we have any volunteers? Or I'm not saying.
What committee is this again?
Well, it's the Long Range Facilities Master Plan Interview Panel. So we want a member of your auspicious group to represent your perspective on doing an interview with prospective long-range facilities master planners.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I know nothing. I'll volunteer, but I know nothing.
Well,
I don't know what expertise I could bring to it, you know, being such a new member of the committee.
I think the chair is being very, very
I don't want to seem
humble.
like I'm a control freak.
He's being
This is,
humble.
most of my career was spent doing exactly.
Well, then, what am I stepping forward for then?
No, this is what I did. It was a large part of my job responsibility.
Say no more.
Well, then, I plead ignorance. You have knowledge.
Because I don't want to be,
Yeah, I set him up.
Thanks, Brewster.
All right, I'll do it.
You're a great straight man.
My colleague said, hey, it's a chance to get ahead, you know?
To lose your head.
Yeah, that's what you said, all right.
All right, I'll be there.
Thank you.
All right, next.
Subcommittee updates.
Not much. It was kind of, I don't know if it, David and I need to get going on, and I've said this last name, that I will actualize it on the annual report cover letter.
And we do have the draft in there without the letter. I mean, it's been posted.
Yeah, there's some additions I would like to see on it, I think, and I just
So,
need to get with David, get an hour with him.
Just let us
and
know
start
what they
on
are
some.
and we'll add it.
Do we have an action for all of us to review this and get back to the chair?
I think we should, yeah, next meeting, right?
I think all of that should happen.
So remember when you're reviewing it, it's the last fiscal year, so it's anything, it's the membership during the last fiscal year, it's the project status at the last fiscal year. Those are all those things. It's the M1 from the last fiscal
Which
year.
means it ends July this year, it's past July.
Yeah.
Right, actually ended June 30th. So if you notice, you got Bernardo still listed, because he was on the committee at 6:30.
Yeah, I think, the next month we need to,
And
reactivate some of these committees, because, it was just, we all were busy and whatever, but I do think, we have the performance audit coming up. We got this issue of, the reporting requirements, make sure we got the financials clear to us, maybe under best practices. So there's some work to do, I think, the next month, or the next meeting. And I can help organize that and then let you run with it if you want to run with it as subcommittee members. Okay, CDOC information. Anybody else on the subcommittees? CDOC information law?
Well, just a
Oh.
point of clarification on that, so we can get in the nitty-gritty here. I like very much what we did today, we go to a site, look around, and have a meeting. We had talked about doing our subcommittees before we have our board meeting or committee meeting, so a little bit of a time conflict there, Tony and Physics going to be one place at a time. So are we thinking now of doing the subcommittee, say at 3 or 4 o'clock, then doing a tour of the site, then coming to this session?
I don't have that many tours in my quiver for the next 6 months, because there's not a lot of big projects going on.
I think got a lot of stuff here we go look
We
at.
can look at the former projects, the ones that are finished, sure.
I'd recommend that we have the subcommittees right before, like we've been doing, maybe a half an hour before, then tents get to it, don't screw around. But I do think Terry's point of having the tours, but I think the tours, especially with the light and the time of years we're approaching, but I would like to see, like we had with the iPads, where we went to Rancho Del Rey, we all had an hour or hour and a half in the afternoon or something, we'd go to a place and look at it, where we happen to meet our schedules and do it that way. Maybe, I'm just talking from my perspective, 3 or 4 meetings from now, have another school we go to and look at, maybe where it's internal, where we got the light,
You want to set up, Mr. Chair, quarterly tours?
Yeah, but I do think, I would like to see, personally, if we can meet our schedules, we go out and look at something, what's operational, like, the iPad thing was useful, that type of thing. So maybe you and I could talk more about it, because Terry and I, every time we talk, he mentions it, and I agree with it, we need to go out and look at things.
Well, think the iPad thing might have been unique because we were trying to get a greater feel for something. Implementation was important in that case, but I liked the tour tonight. I liked it because we had, you know, people like Kathy who were there, was on a member of the community. We got to see that whole structure and got everybody's input and got to meet everybody.
So I would
How
say
does the
that,
rest of the committee feel?
Mr. Chair, for the time being, the government shutdown, and this will not be, may be an impact, but,
You've got plenty of time. No, I'm just kidding.
well, no, on the contrary.
You're on active duty, you're doing all the work.
And we've been restricted from doing any volunteer work during normal working hours until, from the times of 07:30 to 1700. I'm not allowed to do anything volunteer due to the government shutdown. So until that would impact me doing anything.
I better be off by the time the next meeting goes, so we're in real trouble.
So that, I'm able to come here after working hours, but anything during the workday, the government shutdown regulations,
So let me
yes,
get that
we are
straight.
not
So
allowed to do
it's
anything
working.
outside our normal workday.
We're not working, we can't.
So anything, just FYI, I won't be able to
Okay.
attend anything.
All right. What does the rest of the committee feel about the site tour?
I think it's a good idea.
It's excellent,
Yeah.
excellent.
Like we had today?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. You got your marching orders, Tom.
so we'll talk about it on Monday.
Yeah.
Let's see, anything else on subcommittees, the information law.
Information request.
So here's one of the information requests you had, which was on legal fees.
Yeah.
So this is what we gave you before, which was the basically summary by fiscal year. And then what Ceci provided was the highlighted areas. The last 3 fiscal years, she broke it out and gave you a lot more detail to those. And that's not on here? It's not on here.
On the website, yeah, it's on the website.
It's not here.
Legal fees plus backwards request, or what?
So it's in your packages and it breaks down by attorney and which project they were working on.
Chasing after that.
You need to phone that one.
Well, it was on the other one too.
So here it is.
So we got the trees, let me try to find the forest.
So here's 2010-11,
Yeah.
here's 11-12, so 274. So
Wait, back that up.
What?
These are, go back to Stutz. What is this? Is this the name of the attorney and?
yeah, that's the name of the firm.
Yeah.
So they were working on the Har construction lawsuit. These are by invoice, you know, so there could have, I mean, you're gonna see Har construction a lot on
So
here.
what was the problem with Harkins?
Har was terminated for default
Yes.
on
Okay,
2
these
sites.
guys-
They didn't do a good job,
And they didn't finish and
They
they
didn't
walked away
finish
and
and
it
we
was
got rid of them.
terrible.
and their workmanship was
Pay
terrible.
attention to the trials.
Or read the grand jury transcripts.
Yeah, they're mentioned.
So Tom,
Poster children.
I hate to bring up an
Grand
old
jury transcripts were a best
so
practice.
the only Shinoff fees were that 1,280 that's on there,
Where's that?
At the
page
bottom.
2.
Well, that would be Stutz. Doesn't he work for Stutz?
Stutz?
Yeah.
So that's all, that's it for Shinoff?
1,200, he doesn't do a lot of construction stuff.
So that letter of reprimand that he wrote, when
That's not
I
a
talked to
drop-off.
Maria, was charged somewhere else?
That's
That
not
was
a
a
problem.
672.
That was a blip.
All right.
Just looking at a guy trying to make $300 an hour.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't see Nick's name on it.
Yeah,
That's
All right,
the-
moving right along.
all right.
So, you know, Swinnerton, Har, you know, Rexall, I mean, there's a couple firms, Har has got most of them, you know, definitely. So that's.
Who are San Diegans for open government?
Sandlot,
Bonnie Garcia.
Bonnie Garcia.
Bonnie Garcia.
Yep, that's GCR.
San Diego's from Open Government?
Yeah, that's his wife's PAC, so she could donate to the board members.
Ask us, we'll tell you.
I don't know any of that.
If you need to know anything, Mr.
Next,
Kaufman, you
we're
can.
gonna get out.
I try to stay away from that stuff.
Smart idea.
Oh,
In-
Get to your-
For,
I got enough.
for your under committee members' comments.
The agenda items, where are we at?
Or committee member.
Committee member reports.
Okay, I do have one, Mr. Chair.
all right, Dr. Grubb has.
I do have a report.
He's over there, my left.
Yeah, right. I do have a report. I attended, actually, this past week, I can tell you exactly when it was. I've got to be able to read first. Let me get the right one. Okay, we did CBOC interviews for new member on this committee. We interviewed on the 3rd of October, which was Thursday. I had previously looked the week before CC got all of the dossiers together, and I met with the appropriate individual in the employment office. And we looked over the applications. They seem to be appropriate. This is the position for parent on the committee. We interviewed 3 people, all very, very talented individuals. We finally met, and we, after the interviews were complete, went through the employment process that you all go through when you're hiring somebody. And it's very well put together, I must say. And the whole process has tremendously improved since I first did this. And I can't tell everybody here how much I really appreciate Ms. Wagner and the whole group in there. They've done a really nice job to spiff up the whole process and make it professional. And so we made a choice, and that choice is going to be forwarded to the school board for hopefully selection. The name is Dinas Yamani. She was far and away the very best candidate and was 4.0 on everybody's sheet. And she brings to this particular committee a fairly substantial background in proposition funding, Prop R. Like everything else, we'll see how she performs after she's here, but that's the recommendation of our committee.
She was on the Southwestern.
What school does her child go to?
I could tell you that, but I'm
Isn't
not,
she live in National City?
yeah, I think so, but
It would be Granger or Sweetwater.
to not guess, I can't tell you right now.
That's what they need.
I mean, I knew what that was when I read it, I don't know. I guess.
Mr. Chair, we lease fields to her because she, I guess, is the co-owner of the semi-pro football team. A lot of Navy guys out of the naval base. So that's the reason I know the name. I mean, it's familiar because
Anyway, she'll be.
So she has a business arrangement with the district.
she leases the fields through Civic Center Act, which, you know, anyone can lease fields. We charge her the full amount. I can't tell you that.
Good customer.
Is there, yeah, that brings up, is there
We'll
any,
charge her and we'll charge
I
her.
don't know what I have to look at her bylaw. I think, isn't there something,
It
it's
does.
not a conflict?
It's not a conflict, it's a district employee, relative of employee, a person who does provide services for the district. This isn't providing
You
services.
provide services to her, right?
She rents, she pays her fair
Yeah.
share, and
Okay.
Well, she,
She has a child in the district, sir?
excuse me?
Yes,
She has a child in the district?
she does,
That's what I understand.
she does.
I mean, they would have verified that.
We verified everything before we interviewed them.
I don't get involved.
I just don't have her application in front of me, I could do that. But you could find that out if you.
No, I know she is. I just didn't know she had a
Yeah.
child in the district.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could make a couple remarks at this time. I was most impressed with the Montgomery tool. I thought that was just very, very valuable, and I was very impressed with the processes that was explained to me and the involvement of the community, and to see Ms. Cheers happy and involved in that, that was very
I'm a
encouraging.
very nice.
I'm not
sweet
saying that,
person.
man. I'm
I
just
come
saying.
off as a bitch.
Hey,
here.
Bob,
No,
Bob,
no.
you can move on now to World Hunger